Hello and welcome to Dancers Support Mission by Sabine for Shine Your Light. Today we have a new episode of Dancer to Dancer, Words of Wisdom, and the goal of these interviews is to meet the person behind the dancer and share with you all the challenges, or at least some of the challenges behind the scenes and the highlights of someone's career. Today, I have the great pleasure to welcome Marina Eglevsky. I hope I say your name well, Marina. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with me and with us tonight, and welcome.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure.
So Marina, you've had an amazing career as a dancer, as a teacher, as a Balanchine Choreologist, and in the healing arts as well. I mean, you know, you've done so many things. So I'm gonna let you tell us about it more. But you come from an artist family, right? Already you were raised in a dancer's family. So could you, talk to us a little bit about your childhood and how you, I guess you became, you just followed your parents' trajectory, but could you talk to us a little bit about your upbringing and how you started dancing?
Yeah, I was, well, my father was a famous dancer, and my mother was dancer with, she worked with Fokine in California, and my father worked with Fokine in Europe, in France, and then they both joined New York City Ballet. And around the time I was born, my father just came back to New York from France, and they made a house and my father took the job with New York City Ballet with Balanchine. And so everybody asked, you know, when did I start dancing? And my mother would say as soon as she could walk. And it was right away in the studio, you know, with Balanchine. So I just grew up there. And my father was very close friends with Mr. Balanchine. So the whole time there, until I was 14 into, well, I was 14 when he took me in the company. I was, you know, there, and there would be, you know, meetings and dinners, you know, with Balanchine, and you know, he'd sit around. He had a dressing room and a room, and like a green room for teachers, and sit around and talk. They'd talk, and they were, you know, and I was always there because I was just always there. Or in the studio, I watched ballets being created as I was growing up, and people coming and going, like Stravinsky, and, you know, sitting in the studio watching Stravinsky and Balanchine, you know, fix the music. And when they got to the piano, everything stopped, you know, and yeah, just wait until they were finished, you know. So and I think when I was a kid, the most excited, I was remembering this morning, I was thinking, what color is my favorite color? And it's like your beautiful scarf. I thought peach. And I remember watching this ballet, Glinka, Pas de Trois, being created, and I couldn't wait until it was on stage. But I hadn't really hadn't seen the costumes. Then I got on stage, and I got on stage, and I was sitting in the audience. I don't know how old I was, and I was like, peach, how could that be, these most beautiful peach dresses? It was just exquisite. But then, so I grew up in all of that, and always took class. From 3 years old, I was in class, and Mr. Balanchine would correct me. he I guess he liked having me in class. And but then when I was 6, my father formally started his own school, and I took classes there. But I was still then I did Nutcrackers with New York City Ballet. So every year, well, Nutcracker was very different. That oh, not different, but we would start rehearsal in September when school started, and then the performances went through into March. That was a long time of performing and being with the company. And so I mean that just went on. And then my father had he opened a school, so I trained with, I mean, the younger kids in his school were trained by my mother, who was a wonderful teacher. And then when you got to be a bit older, you were with my father. So around 8, I mean, I did 2 years with my mother, and then 8, I was with my father. And then I started going over to SAB. And then my father had a children's company, and and then he had a professional company right away. So I performed with the children's company until I was maybe 8 or 9, and then
Great.
no, about 10, and then was in the professional company. And my father had Mr. Balanchine help him. So Mr. Balanchine would send over students, share students with SAB. They would come, and Gelsey was one of them. Fernando Gelsey, Kirkland, Fernando Bojones, and these students would come and perform with my father. And Balanchine would give the ballets. So it's like a collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I did Balanchine ballets while I was growing up in the company with my father. And then at 14, he took me into the company. But before that, around 13 years old, I started going to ABT as well. I would go, this is practically 24/7, 7 days a week for sure. Kind of make the rounds. My father's class, they go over to ABT and Slavic and Griffin, and well, and then go over to SAB.
So
And
basically, you never even ask yourself the question, do I want to dance? You just knew.
no, I never asked that question ever until I got to school. I was in and out of school, and that was very hard because I didn't have any socializing in school, and everybody else did. So I was sort of an outcast. But most of the time I was with ballet, so it didn't really matter. But I think it was around 13 years old, I thought, well, wait a minute, maybe I should be going to school, because my parents really wanted me to have a diploma. But that was so very difficult, due to the circumstance. I never took a test. I never took, the end of the year test ever. And, so I thought, well, I better be sure. So I'm going to either do dance for sure and no questioning, or I'm going to transition into school and be a doctor.
So it was
And that
at
didn't
13,
last very long.
at 13, right?
At 13.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you already
And
had a full career behind you, right? Because
yeah,
you already had danced everywhere.
kind of unusual. It's just because my parents, were just, that was the life we lived. Again, that was 24/7. We performed it all the time. Every weekend there was a performance practically, and holidays, and
That's wonderful, though. I mean, so few people have this experience, right?
yeah. But then when at 13, I mean, it was just that time where I thought, I do love medicine, which I still do. And I thought, maybe I'd better make this decision now. And then my parents said that, schooling they couldn't support me in schooling. You know, they were too busy. They were, for a lot of reasons. So I thought, oh, that's not so good. So I went into a kind of blitz with that, running around to different schools, trying to really get myself in shape. And yeah, at 14, which, you know, Balanchine was taking kids at 14.
Yeah.
And but I mean, you know, you would go in and be taking class, and well, you then take, if you're in the company, then you take Balanchine's class, and then you know, you would hang around because you're young, you know, and you have to kind of learn the ropes. And it's family, it was a family there. Everybody was just so caring for each other. But I didn't. I did this thing which was rather crazy. I went to, well, because of my parents and because Mr. Balanchine was so close to my father, I mean, they were friends, that I felt a little worried to be in the company. I felt that I didn't want my father to influence my career at that point. So I was very concerned. And one day I went to see a ballet performance, Rebecca Harkness ballet.
Mhm.
And I don't know, it was like, all of a sudden, it was like, just, you know, heaven was presented in front of my life, you know. And what do? Do you reject heaven, you know? Because I had been doing Balanchine, I have been with Balanchine since, you know, a baby. And I loved ballet and I loved dance. And I had studied, you know, in my father's school, he had flamenco, and he had modern, and, you know, Alvin, not Alvin, no, I mean, there were so many people that came from New York that were guest teaching, and I was exposed to a lot, but ballet was, you know, the big focus. And I went to that Harkness performance, and it was like magic. It was like all the things that I had been exposed to were there on stage, and I wanted to know them more. I wanted to learn them as well.
Mhm.
So I went in the lobby of the theater. I asked somebody, who's the director of this company? And they said, Brian McDonald, and pointed, he's standing over there. So I walked right up to him and I said, excuse me, but can I be in your company?
So how old were you by then?
Well, I was 14. And he said, oh. And, you know, he asked my name, and then he said, oh, well, I think, you know, let's have you come take class and talk to Rebecca and whatever. They took me in the company. But I turned 15. So at 15, I was there. And that wasn't such a good thing. That's what I wanted.
It was very young. I mean, to be all, you know, I mean, I can see kids at 15, they're not ready to be in a company for sure.
I don't think I was. I would not have done it again, but I did it. And also my father was very, very angry at me from then on. He was very unhappy with me. So, yeah.
And I mean, that didn't stop there, because you've danced with many other companies. You've danced in Europe as well, and I know with the Royal Winnipeg Ballet. So I mean, that was just the beginning of a very long adventure, right?
Yes, we did Harkness, but she closed the company, our first company, and she opened a second company, and so we were sort of stranded in Europe. And I was in relationship with Salvatore Aiello at the time, and we wanted to stay in Europe, and we got into Béjar, but I felt Béjar wasn't right for me. It was good for my husband, but so then we came back to New York, and we worked with the Eglevsky company. And then during that time, we met Arnold Spohr in New York, and he said he needed you know, dancers, female and male. So we didn't know. I mean, didn't know what Winnipeg, even that it existed on the map. But we said, yeah, you know. I never forget flying there and looking out the window, and there was just nothing there. It was like a flat pancake plane, and you could see the edge of the world. But joined the company and really loved it. I mean, it was rather incredible.
But had its
And,
golden age at that time, right? I mean, it was.
oh gosh, yes. And working with Arnold was wonderful. And then I met John Neumeier in Harkness. He did a ballet in Harkness, and we had you know, we had a very good relationship um, right away. So he 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 let's see, he went to Frankfurt, and then when he got uh, he came to Winnipeg, and we worked with him in Winnipeg, and he was like, I lost you. I know if I would have brought you to Frankfurt if I had known, you know, where you are. But then he said he was, I think 2 years later from that, he said he was opening a company in Hamburg. He was being transferred to Hamburg, and would I join? So yes, went to Hamburg and worked with him, which was, again, you know, I was just in love with him and his work. You know.
Well, you were lucky to have all those influences, Balanchine, you know, Béjart, Neumeier. I mean, it's quite amazing. Uh, I mean, amazing to be able to have a taste of everything like this, you know, in one career, right?
I think I accepted it because very back then, you know, father was bringing in, you know, modern, you know, people, and then going to Harkness was like, Harkness was so unique. I mean, she did everything. They did everything. We did everything, you know, from ballet to modern to jazz, you know, worked with Jerry Robbins and, you know, all that jazz, you know, and I think that, I mean, I was exposed to, from Harkness, to know that the ballet could be combined with all of this. And I think Harkness was the start of really of making contemporary really viable and real, you know.
And also
Harkness was,
hit up with ballet, right? That it's
yeah.
that's all what all the companies do now. I mean, most companies, you know, big companies, that's what they do. They mix up repertoire.
Mm.
So, what did you enjoy most about being a dancer?
Okay, being a dancer. So when I was growing up, the motto sort of, for me, I don't know about my brothers, but was you must be seen but not heard. And so I couldn't I couldn't talk too much. It's like these meetings with all these famous people and all, you know, it was constant with my father. Um, I would be seen, I'd be there, and you know, but I was told to be very quiet, don't talk. And so getting on stage was a place where I could talk, you know, I could express myself. So it was a home for me because I grew up in the theater. You know, I spend more time probably in theater than at home, but it was also a place when I was on stage, I could speak. And when, you know, with New York City Ballet, when they had time out, you know, the time after rehearsal, they had class rehearsal, and then they had a break, and then they fixed the stage up, and, you know, and then um, called half hour or whatever. But in that break time, I was always allowed to be on that stage, and I performed. I knew all the rep. I would be on stage going through the rep, you know, whatever. And it was a place where I could suddenly, you know, speak, and I could express myself.
Yeah.
And it was always like that on stage. And and being with a feeling of safety. I don't know why I had that feeling that I was in my own world and I
Is
could
that,
be safe.
is that something you miss? You've missed when you stopped dancing, or?
No, no, not so much the stage, but I had to learn at, halfway through my life, I had to learn how to express myself verbally, which was very, very difficult. Sounds very strange, but very difficult.
No, no, no. I mean, it's not easy to speak up. It's completely different to dance and to talk. I mean, it's a different place as well, right? In the body.
Yeah. And then also music. Music was always for me a way to reach, higher levels of existence, spiritually. And also when it seems when I hear a piece of music that moves me, I just have to dance. So I think, if I don't, if I do that in class, in teaching, but if I don't have that a lot, if I don't have music on and I just don't let myself move because I love it so much, I think part of my body, my being misses that.
Yeah.
Yes, I miss that.
Okay. And what was your biggest challenge actually as a dancer?
My biggest challenge was my body because I didn't have a perfect ballet body at
Who
all.
does?
well, well, in dealing with my body and my immaturity, it was um, a huge issue. That was my biggest challenge. And then, there was my father being so famous, like everybody knew him. It wasn't that I had to be good because of expectations of him, but it was that I had to. It was expectations from myself that I had to be good. That I guess I developed over time. Not better than him or anything like that, but I think I had huge expectations on myself.
And
And
that
then
had,
also, mhm.
sorry,
I'm sorry,
we had
it
a
broke up a
problem.
little,
Yeah. Go on, go on.
froze a bit. Yeah, and then I had challenges with my body, with my muscles. I think because I had danced, I was on point at 3 years old. So my muscles, especially my calves and my arches, were cramp a lot.
Did you
And
have
at that
shoes made
time,
for you at 3 years old? Because I don't know that you can have such small shoes. Did you have point? How did you
oh, it's
find shoes?
a funny story. I mean, my father was performing. I think it was either NBC or CBS studios, and I always would get lost, and I'd go find somewhere and start dancing, and my mother would always find me because she could find a crowd of people, and she knew I was dancing, and the crowd of people would crowd form, and she lost me in the studios, and I somehow got onto that. I think it was a Howdy Doody or Mickey Mouse show set, and they were on live, and they that and I started coming on and dancing, and they whisked me away and put me in this office, and I sat there in the office, and on the shelf there was a pair of pointe shoes, and they were really little, these little tiny pointe shoes. And the lady came in there and she said, I kept looking at them. She said, "Oh, you want to see the pointe shoes?" And I said, "Yeah." And they fit my feet perfectly. They were real pointe shoes. I sent you a picture. My father sewed elastics over them, and I wore those pointe shoes until they were completely shred. Completely fell apart. But that was hard on my muscles. And at the time, I had the interest in medicine for in working with your body and health for the body. because of my muscles, I thought, um, something is wrong. I'm doing something wrong. So I would come into class, not at SAB or ABT, but I'm coming to my father's class, and I come with anatomy books,
Mhm.
and I put them down on the floor or wherever, and I would be looking at them when I was taking class and seeing what muscles are doing what and what I could do, to help myself. Plus nutrition, what would help my muscles, stay supple and relaxed and not tense up. And study technique as much as I could because I didn't have that in my training, you know. And that's something I think I learned that's so important in training is to study anatomy, to study, you know, physiology and nutrition and alignment, these things like gyrotonics and
So
um,
this is basically what you when you stopped dancing, you went into that, right? Learning as much as you could in every way about the body and more because I mean, I could see that. I actually don't know the Rosen technique, the method. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that because I know that you've done that. And maybe you can tell us a little bit more about what else you got interested into, to actually help yourself and help others.
yes, when I stopped dancing, I thought, I started teaching at school, North Carolina School of the Arts, because my husband, Salvatore Aiello, became associate director with North Carolina Dance Theater, and then a director with the company, which was working out of the school. And Robert Lindgren, who was dean there, said, if you're hanging around here, you need to teach. I'm going to have you teach, and I did. And then I did Brigadoon on Broadway. Agnes DeMille came and asked me to do Brigadoon, and I did that. And then I sort of just thought I've got to figure something out, and I went with Sal. The company performed in Europe, and I went and just hung around, had cappuccinos all day long, and just sat and thought, what am I going to do? And I had 5 things I was going to do, and I chose one, which was having a bakery.
Oh,
Because I never could eat any pastries. I don't know. I like cooking, and I thought, well, I'm not going to cook everything. I'll just cook pastries. That didn't last too long. I suddenly thought I have to do medicine. I have to do what I had wanted to do. Well, it was the second choice. So I went into Western medicine, and I went into a program that I had friends in Wyoming, and went into that, and I I I couldn't do it. I had to come back and help my mother with her school, and I couldn't stop staging ballets, which I staged some Balanchine ballets, and but I was so excited about it. I went into an easier program in uh, alternative therapies
mhm.
and massage and alternatives. And my favorite was what's called Rosen method body work, created by a woman in Germany who partly learned this technique through dancers and through breath work in Germany, and had to leave Germany because she was Jewish, and then finally came to the United States and landed in Berkeley. And I learned her method. And what I can say with all my heart and all my knowing now at this point, from all my career in dance and everything I've been through, that that's the thing I think dancers all dancers should do, because it's a way of learning about yourself in the interior of yourself, why you do what you do,
Mhm.
why you are who you are, um, and you learn it through your body, and as dancers work with our body all the time.
Mm.
So it it gives you so much more understanding about your body, who you are, and what you can give as an artist, what you can you know put out in your work. And
But when you say through your body, meaning do you actually do exercises? Is it through tension
no,
and release? Is it through exploration? How does it work?
it's exploration with hands on. The practitioner has their hands on you, and you explore your body with the practitioner being more like a facilitator.
Okay.
So, that's another thing that I think dancers need. They need now, and I wish I had it as a dancer from early on. You need mentors, you need coaching, and when you're in a Rosen method training and therapy, and you're on the table, you're the person with the hand on is like a coach. It's like a trainer. They take you through your own inner journey. They go with you in your journey and help you see what it is. But
Yeah, I mean, I know that, we always say that dancers are so in tune with their bodies, but it's both true and untrue. It's like they're athletes and they can do amazing things with their body. They have control over their body, but they barely know themselves, and this is what it takes actually to really, I don't know, I think dance from inside out, and also as a person to be able to, face challenges and adversity, and as well also joy and happiness, to be able to embrace everything.
yes.
And yeah, absolutely, I completely agree. I do not know that method. I looked into it a little bit, and I thought it was really interesting. I mean, many
Yes.
methods actually, they aim at the same thing. It's just different approaches. And then, I think people should explore many different facets of, I mean, or different techniques so that they can find what resonates most with them.
Yeah, they're different techniques, and I think that when you find what resonates, they all do the same thing. They all come to the
Yeah.
same place, where you have to know who you are as a person to be an artist. And when we focus so much on technique, I notice this with kids I work with. Their technique, technique, technique. It's endless. You you turn off. You actually turn off to being human and being um, having the experience of what happens with you in movement, you
Hmm.
know, and the expression,
Yeah, and put
yeah,
put some life into your dancing.
live, yeah. It's very easy for that to happen, and then it becomes hard to add that in. You know, I think it should be in training as early as possible.
Absolutely.
And Marion had movement too. She had movement in the part of the practice and the training as well. So I really love that work. I think I did once. I staged Petrushka, the ballet at North Carolina School of the Arts, and I I had I could take anyone out of the school and cast them. I had a huge cast. I even had the chancellor, and he was the bear. And I went in, I went into the art, the acting department to get people. I had a field day. The dancers, the ballet, and the modern, But with the yeah, so like Petrushka was modern dancer, and then um, I had a variety, but I told the cast the, the the three dolls that they would only be casted if they did Rosen with me, both on the table, and then I would bring it into the studio. So they agreed, and I would, in the studio, I wouldn't be touching them. I just stop them at times and say, where are you? What are you feeling? What are you doing? How are you translating this movement into what? Where are you translating it to? What are you speaking in with your body? And I did those privately. And then when they got into the whole group, the whole cast, they were so strong in what they did. They knew what they were doing. They were so strong. The whole cast just magnetized to them, and knew what they were about in their roles. Even if they're, I had one person doing the balloons and walking around with the balloons. He was so into it. It just magnetized and gelled, and it was incredible. I think from those dancers that work was so powerful.
Yeah, I mean, just you talking about it, I can feel it in my bones. And I completely agree with you. I mean, I think this is something that somewhere is getting lost right now in big, I mean, in big production. Nothing magnetized me, I mean, of course, people are doing those amazing things with their legs and everything, but
Yeah.
I feel very empty and bored, because of this work that is not done. I mean, it's like even the preparation of a full length needs time. It needs, you need to build up and everything, and now everything is so fast. Basically, you can do the step up, you go on, and
I think the competition has not served us. I mean, Balanchine hated competitions and refused to have his ballets in competitions. And I'm sort of the Balanchine Trust. I have ballets. The ballets that a lot of the ballets that Mr. Balanchine, not a lot, some of the ballets that Mr. Balanchine had my father do in his company. He said, just keep them.
mm-hmm.
And then when Mr. Balanchine passed, the trust sorted this out, and some of them became, in my trust, basically mine. And when the thing of competition comes up all the time. Can I do this in the competition? And Mr. Balanchine said no. The trust says no, and I have to say no. And I kind of agree. Some of it's okay, but it gets so intense that kids don't see the artistry. They can't see past competing.
Yeah.
The higher leg, the higher jump, the more pirouettes. The better this, the better that, and that's all.
Mm.
And I think dance really has to get to, I think, understanding the body, understanding the soul, our soul, who we are, our spirit.
We're
Um,
multi-dimensional beings, so
I mean, can you imagine putting that together with the incredible technique the kids seem to have now these days?
I know.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, but what this Rosen, can you do this Rosen technique also online, or you need to be
I can do it online. Mm-hmm.
yeah, okay. So
It's harder though.
if
If it's
people
harder,
to find you, they could eventually.
yes, yes.
I'll put your information below in the description. We'll
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna make a website because I haven't done that yet, but I'm gonna do that. And I always can be reached through the Balanchine Trust.
okay. But
But
people might get
yeah,
intimidated to reach you through the Balanchine Trust.
yes, yeah, they just call them up and they know my information. But I think yes, it can be done online in many ways, and also kids, and that's another problem. And it's not just competition, but these schools, they put you through classes. They have a lot of kids and technique class, and you get some point. I even see less variation now in schools, and my father's idea about training was you take class and you learn how to go into rehearsal.
Mm-hmm.
Or so class is one level, and then you learn how to perform basically in a rehearsal, how to prepare yourself for performance. That's the next stage of rehearsal. You have to have that, and in a sense, variations and pas de deux class, and you know, rehearsing, and then you do rehearse for the pieces that you're doing on stage, and then you have to learn how to be on stage. So it's not that you take class and then you can be a performer. You know, it just doesn't work that way. It didn't before. I don't know how. I don't see it working now. When I stage a ballet, I there's so much work that should have been done before. You know, in this middle stage with variations and rep and kids. You know, and that's another thing Balanchine said. He said, "I don't want my ballet sitting on shelves." He said they need to be done, except for competition, but they need to be done. They need to be performed by
Well, he
kids.
was actually really generous, right? He would give his ballets to everybody, and now nobody can do them unless they go through the trust, you know.
Well, the trust is pretty good about schools doing, but schools, I don't think they often think they can, you
Yeah.
know, and
Yeah,
kids,
it's always a matter of finances too, right? Because to bring someone, you know, to do sometimes it's difficult.
no, I think that if a school really wants it and wants the kids to work on it, the trust helps out. It really helps out because of, but people don't think that the kids can do it. But that's the thing too. I mean, when you do these ballets, you get stronger. They're hard.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They're really hard.
Yeah.
And why not start young? You know, yeah. But
Yeah, the Balanchine rep is fantastic to learn how to move. I mean, you know, it's like
yeah,
because it's just pure dance on you know, and so musical and so free. I mean, it's fantastic if we get the chance to dance those ballets. I mean, you know that better than anybody. But I danced a lot of Balanchine ballet, and I was really fortunate in Amsterdam. We had an amazing repertoire of Balanchine, so I had a lot of fun doing
yeah,
that.
yeah. Mhm.
And so, I mean, I have my next question is actually, you already touched on it quite a bit. You know, what did you wish you had known when you were a dancer that you know now? And I mean, you know, you've
Yes, we've touched on it. Health. Um,
so basically it's
so,
mostly that.
well, I think what I was going to say is that aside from all of that training that I think you really should have is that aside from technique and point, variations, and then performing rep as much, and not just big ballets like, okay, we're going to do Cinderella in the spring and we're going to do Nutcracker in the winter, but really getting into shows where you're performing these ballets, small ballets, and dancing. You're dancing. You really um, taking what you learn out of class and dance. Anyway, I think kids in school there should be time made at some point for health, and that's what I never had, for body alignment. Now we have these machines,
Mm-hmm.
that should be in these schools, not that you go
Gyrotonic.
out,
The
some,
machine you have behind you is the
uh,
gyrotonic machine, right? For those who don't
yes, right, and Pilates, and gyrotonics is wonderful for dancers because it's 360 movement, and they have to learn history. They just have to. I mean, you can't be in an art form without knowing history.
know.
You know, that's the meat of your work. And then nutrition. How to care for your body, how to care for your mind and soul, and you know, things inside Rosen where you're in touch with your body without doing tendus or anything, but resting and being in touch and hearing it, what it has to say. You know, what it's always talking to you.
Yeah.
But I think I didn't have that, and of course I learned that later. And I would have, oh wow, if I could have had that when I was dancing, wow. And support. Um, you know, when a long time ago, when I was training, I was always told that to be a good dancer, you had to have good teachers, you know, whatever, you know, but that there's a point to that. And you had to have have good choreography. But the teaching used to be when, you know, a teach when you had free time, you would go off to a teacher that was said as to be famous, you know, or really gifted, and or had something that you needed, you know, like I used to go to south of France to Marina Eglevsky because she really got me to work my pelvis, which no one else did, you know. And you know, when I was training, there weren't corrections really. They would, you just say do, you know, point your feet, you know, put your popo in, you know, but never how. So, you know, I would look for teachers that taught how, the hows. And that started in Harkness too, because these Lawrence Rhodes and, you know, these dancers there, Helgi Tomasin was one of, in the company I danced with. They in class talked about, Helgi didn't teach, but Larry did. And Paul Sutherland, people who taught you, I find this John, how to take your pelvis. You know, how you really do balance, you know, which the hows I never got. And that's very important. So like technique classes outside of class, you know, like theory, I think is very important. I think I had that. Wow. And another thing I'm very interested in, maybe I can help promote right now, is, which could be done very easily online, is coaching. Having a mentor. You know, I would have given anything to have a mentor. Someone who knows the field and who can be by your side and, you know, just help you through.
Yeah, of course. I mean, totally agree. But I mean, I think like dancers, also above students, they get into, once they are into a school, you know, they carried away in their own, I mean, they have no time to do anything else, right?
No, I know. Well, that's a big problem, time. But if it, you know, you can't, maybe not every day, maybe you can have workshops, you know, at certain given times.
Yeah.
You know,
but it's also about for dancers to be curious, see those other parts, and to understand that it is as important as doing a point class and as doing a variation, you know, like to know yourself, to know your body, to know what you're feeling, know what you're thinking, and, you know, to be able to make the full Monty grow together, you know, like not just, you know, practice and become completely empty inside, because I've seen that as well, right? They want to do so well, they want to be so good, that in the end they lose themselves into it, you know. So that's my 2 cents at that.
I mean, you're, no, absolutely. And, you know, I mean, a dancer really is an artist, and they have to, they use music, you know, they use their body, they use music. We are an artist, and we express, you know, we take information from other places and express from God, you know, or wherever, and take that information, and we're conduit, an instrument, that flows through us, and we bring it out to the people. I used to say before every performance I did, if there's one person it was my prayer, if there's one person that leaves this theater uplifted, I've done my work. One, I've done my work. But some people, I talk about this just with people, and they say, you how do you teach a person to be an artist? Well, they say it's impossible. You're born an artist or not. And I don't believe that necessarily. I think that what would it be like to have a well-rounded training where you understand music, you understand history of ballet or dance, and you understand yourself as well as everything else. I mean, then there's more possibility of becoming an artist.
Well,
and it isn't.
That's what we're gonna project, and we're gonna build for the future.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah,
I hope we can do it.
So Marina, how was the last 2 years for you? I mean, those were very difficult years, right? The COVID year. I mean, how was it for you practically, mentally, emotionally? Was it?
Yeah, I was working at San Francisco Ballet School, and Patrick Armand called me on Friday the 13th in March. It's almost exactly 2 years ago. And said, no more classes. And I said, oh, well, it'll be two weeks.
Yeah.
And he laughed. He said, I don't think so. And at first I was like relief. It was sort of like a forced rest, and then it was like, that this might go on longer, and people are starting to teach on Zoom, and I didn't know how to do that. So it took me a while to learn, and that was very stressful.
Mm-hmm.
It was like almost coming into a whole different profession. And then teaching it in the living room and trying to figure out how to make something feel like it's moving, but you're staying in one place.
Mm-hmm.
And being cut off, I had a whole ballets that I had to stage. It was all stopped. My work was stopped. My body, the body work, doing that was all stopped. It was suddenly like, wow, I have to rethink life.
Like most people did in the end, which was a positive also effect of this whole thing, right? Is everybody went inward and started to question,
Yeah. I mean, it's still kind of going on, and I don't know where it's going. I don't know if it's going to change, be the catalyst to make a change. Maybe it will make that change to art, more artistry instead of this phenomenal technique, to bring it in, because people are more introspective if they have to sit home around.
And find other ways. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's almost an hour already. It's been so fast. So I would like to ask you to finish that conversation. What would be the single best advice you would give, someone who starts their career now?
Yeah, I probably touched on a lot as far as I'm concerned. My concerns and thoughts. To be careful of competition. That kind of energy, competing. I think we need to work together more, and that's kind of it's like this kind of energy instead of this.
Yeah.
And that works for oneself. you know, because it's very harsh on one's psyche, you know. And I think to learn to to really learn how to dance, um, you know, in your all during your training years, you know, dance. And seek out teachers that you can have go private classes with, you know, if that's possible. It's very difficult with schools, and I think that if that would be advice for schools, is to allow kids to go out and have, you
Yeah.
know, private, or have that private, some privates one-on-one in a school, like set that up instead of these big classes, massive classes where you're in a mass of people and you have to, again, it's a competition kind of thing. We need to be, I think, especially now after COVID, maybe bring in some nurturing, you know. And one-on-one is where someone can really focus in, hone in, and really be there for you, you know. And as I said, also, you know, the the body work, and to be, you know, really to be as well rounded as possible. Um, you know, if you're not given variations, or you're not given health classes, or to go seek it out yourself, you know, learn about your body because it's your instrument. You
Mhm.
know, there are kids that never seek out something like this machine, gyrotonics, and they have the studio, you know, and they sit right where they live, you know, things like that. And healthcare, and, you know, how to take care of the body, what good nutrition is. That's very, very important. Not it's, you know, we think, well, I'm fine today, but down the line you may not be. So you need to do that today, so that down the line you're fine. It's very stressful in a company, you know. It's really hard on the body, and also the mind, you know. Taking care of your mind is a very big thing.
Endeavor.
um, Keeping it positive, keeping it healthy. Nutrition helps your mind too.
Mhm. Well, it's
Yeah.
a circle, right? That if you take care of your body, you take care of your emotion, you take care of your thoughts, and you know, everything starts, you know, rolling together. If one thing, if you just discard one or two things, then everything is, I mean, everything, how do you say,
Oh,
the opposite of benefits from it. I mean, it's like it's a vicious circle, right? So it's important to see the whole picture.
yeah. And also, you know, learning about the field, you know, past dancers, you know, studying them. And we can study them online, we can watch them, we can current dancers, and learning that way is a very big uh, help. And, you know, history and music. um, I know, again, I know there's little time for everything, but um, the, I really, because you know, I go into a studio to stage a ballet. I am not the director, and I'm not the teacher. I'm someone else. You know, that needs to see an effect. You know, I can't, I can't teach these things as I'm staging a ballet. Often I have like 5 days or something to do a
I know
ballet.
it's very difficult.
I want to see it in the kids.
Mhm.
You know, I want to see, you know, that they, if I say, you know, this ballet was done by Melissa Hayden, you know, Maria Tallchief and Andre Eglevsky, that they know that these people are,
Yeah.
you know, already, you know, because, you know, and they're excited about it.
And there's so much information online. I mean, you know, there's no excuses now. But I find that, you know, because there's so much available, it just, people don't even stop. They just go, you know, they see a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of that, and nothing is, they don't, you know, even variations, you know, sometimes they only look at a variation, but why not watch the whole ballet, you know, when it's available, so you can have the full
Exactly.
picture.
But you see, Sabine, this is where competition comes in because they have to find a variations for their competitions, and they'll be more into, what they can do in a competition, and that doesn't have anything to do with, any of this, any of the history or anything. That doesn't, you don't need that for a competition,
Yeah, I
you
know.
know.
Yeah, but then you
And
don't
also,
know who you're representing, you know, you're doing a variation, but you don't even know who that person is supposed to be. So,
or the music, you
yeah.
know. I'm going to teach a workshop in the summer, and every day we're going to have an hour where we talk about things and why, and I teach a little ballet, like, and I chose Glinka. Well, why? Why did I choose Glinka? Who's Glinka?
Mhm.
What does Glinka mean to the Russian people? And what does Glinka mean? Why did Balanchine wanted to do every single piece of Glinka's? He wanted to choreograph. John Neumeier wanted to choreograph every single piece of Mahler. Why? Why is that so important? What does that mean? You know?
Yeah, we should do another interview on all that.
Mhm. Yeah,
Okay, Marina, thank you so much for this beautiful conversation. It was really interesting to get to know you, and
yes,
I really thank you
you.
very much. And
Yeah,
hopefully, maybe we can do another one, at another point, another time.
sure, sure. I love that. Thank you, Sabine.